Hey guys, welcome to today's podcast. Today we're going to be talking about email security 101 and going over a lot of the common misconceptions, security practices, and things to be aware of in terms of email security. This is personally one of my favorite topics, and we literally had to delay the filming of this podcast due to an incident from an email. So it is very relevant, and hopefully we bring you guys some good content today. So with that, let's get into it. Well, cool. Anyways, let's get into it. Today's podcast on email security. It's been a little while since our last one, but we've got the usual suspects here, Stefan and Julio, to kind of go through some of the 101s of what's going on in the email security landscape. To kick things off, really, we have to give context of like how important email security is today, right? This is one of my favorite things to talk about because just like conditional access and some of the other things that we've been talking about, email security represents a huge chunk of what's going on in the landscape today. A couple of different reports. Verizon's 2024 data breach investigations report approximates like 74% of breaches starting with email as the primary vector, right? And other sources like Microsoft stating that over 70% of breaches are coming from email, CISA at more than 90% estimated, and Deloitte 91%. So 70 to 90% of emails is a huge chunk of initial attack vectors, right? So today we're going to dive in on what we can do about email security and get into some tips and tricks on that stuff. So to kick it off, Stefan, do you want to touch on what's going on in the phishing landscape? That's like what's on everybody's mind, basically. Phishing. What is happening on the dark web? And all of your personal experience. No, I'm just kidding. But buying these services. So tell us a little bit about like what you know about phishing as a service and what these people are doing.
Yeah, it's actually quite scary because phishing started as simple emails. Click on a link, enter your password, enter your MFA, and then someone catches your data. But they started as phishing kits. Quite complicated to set up, but if you put some work in it, you would have a phishing service and you could start sending out emails for phishing. They've started to do phishing as a service. For a monthly subscription, they will set up your phishing service. They even have a customer service. You can call them on a US number and they will even help you with your phishing emails. They have a lot of templates you can send, and you can even improve your emails with AI to improve your spelling. A year ago, if you would look at your phishing emails, they would have a couple of spell errors
or a lot, and they'd look terrible. The emails that a lot of people are used to were really ridiculously poor bodies in the email, misspellings, all those things. And that was like 8 years ago, the red flags were like, check for spelling and grammar and things like that. Those things do not matter anymore. I mean, no one serious is sending out phishing emails that look bad anymore. Most of them, a big chunk of them are really, really good from like the language standpoint. There's no grammar errors. And they're obscurating and finding ways to get around filtering more and more, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, like you said, I mean, this is like a fully automated attack infrastructure, yeah? And another common misconception that we hear a lot is that, well, I'm a small company and I'm not gonna get targeted. Like nobody's looking and finding my email and plugging that into this service. Well, guess what? They're just scraping hundreds of thousands of emails and sending these out en masse to everybody they can get their hands on. And as soon as one of the people on your team enter this password or multi-factor, they're capturing that and it's lighting up their console. So they go, oh, okay, look at this domain. I've got a credential here. Now your company might start to get targeted. And you're a lot more prone to having a breach at that point because your volume might be going up and people are actually targeting your organization, right? So yeah. Also the user friendliness factor of these services, like that's really scary because you could probably be like 14 years old and breach a company now.
It's super scary. It's super scary because you just get get a new subscription, like $200 per month.
Yep.
And they have customer service, they have all the help pages, they have a full support desk, and they can help you with everything phishing based. So it's super scary. Anyone can do it.
Julio, maybe you could talk a little bit about some of the stuff you've seen in the wild of like masquerading techniques. How are they hiding links or getting these emails through?
Yeah, for sure. I think the really the biggest one is links. So usually what I have seen and what I actually saw, I think it was last week, and one of our clients, they received an email from someone saying, "Hey, take a look at these documents within this folder," and they attached a link, and then the client responded, right? The end user responded, and then the attacker responded again, but it actually came from a different email. And so that's kind of like one of the ways that I was able to kind of see, okay, this is probably like a nefarious actor. And then obviously like with further testing and in Sandbox, testing at the actual link, seeing where it goes. But that's kind of like one of the biggest things that I've seen is like links and the emails themselves. They just don't look that well put. But that's not to say that they can't be a little bit more sophisticated on that same like topic.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, on the sophistication factor, like we're seeing services like embedded document services. So they'll put links inside of documents, right? PDFs, attachments, those kind of things. That's been around for a while. We're also seeing like QR codes in email more than ever now, right? And those QR codes are a way for you to scan it with a phone that doesn't have endpoint protection oftentimes, and it doesn't have as much detection capability. So you go scan it, and then you can enter your creds there. And the same type of attack that would happen on a computer is even easier to accomplish on a smartphone a lot of times.
Right.
So,
Usually, I feel like one of the best kind of like rules of thumb is if you're expecting an email from someone, then it can be safer, right, to click on that link or whatever. But if it's something that comes out of the blue, and you're like, it says like, oh, hey, like click this link for us to pay the invoice or whatever it is, right? Something that's very enticing. Definitely kind of tread a little bit more cautiously with it.
well, and something I add to that, I mean, it's obvious if you've never heard of this person or interacted with them before, that's pretty like that could be a really obvious factor.
Right.
What I would probably add to that is that unfortunately, because a lot of companies are not doing what they need to protect email security, their accounts are getting what we call popped or compromised.
Right.
And so even the ones that you should probably most suspect would oftentimes be the people who you email frequently.
Right.
And all of a sudden out of the blue, it's like a random invoice or a detail change.
Yeah, for sure.
So honestly, like if anything, those are the ones you really have to be careful because you'll have a lot more trust with those by default, but they could totally have a compromised account. So finding other trusted methods to verify it, like calling them at a known number, would be recommended if you're really trying to dig in. But yeah, we see that most frequently, like in these supply chain breaches, it is coming from somebody that you actually know and do business with. And somebody was in their account for weeks or months and they waited to like send the wrong ACH information or try to intercept a payment, right?
Yeah.
We've literally seen that before.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of like, it can definitely get murky with these accounts, especially if they're pop. You just can't tell sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, so give them a call, find a trusted way to reach out to them, verify, let them know, those kind of things. So, yeah.
We actually had a breach a couple of hours ago.
Like literally an hour ago. Yeah. we had to delay the podcast filming shortly. We literally had a compromised account on a potential customer as we were like about to film this. So that literally goes to show you that this is a very much a now thing. Like it's happening at more and more rapid pace. And of all the things you consider in cybersecurity, this is probably one of the biggest to be focusing on for sure. Because once your account's compromised, if you have all your services in the cloud, and even if it's not in the cloud, right? Even if you have on-premise infrastructure, once you have a login, you have a lot to work with, and you can really start to move to document systems and try to exfiltrate data, Teams messages, emails, right? You don't want people up in those. And
I think this is one of the harder ones to kind of lock down, meaning you can have like really robust systems in place and policies in place, but at the end of the day, like emails and kind of like responding to these phishing attacks and stuff involves like your team. And it involves a human element, and you can be like engineered socially engineered or however you want to put it to.
It's a constant chicken or the egg problem.
Yeah.
So like all of these things that we're about to talk about too, like the security measures, those improve and then attackers improve, right?
Yep.
At one point, not too long ago, like just a few years ago, everybody was all about MFA, multi-factor authentication, right? You've got to have it, and you still need to have it, right? I mean, it'd be crazy to run without even having MFA, because then all you need is a password. You'd literally need nothing else.
Right.
But these advanced phishing attacks that we're talking about are campaign as a service, and they actually capture the multi-factor token too. As you go to log in on this advanced phishing page, it captures your multi-factor token, and without the proper controls, it lets you right in. So literally the common ways to block this just a couple of years ago are almost completely ineffective now.
Yeah.
They serve to add additional barrier for sure, but they are not effective against advanced phishing.
Yeah.
So that's what we'll kind of get into in the next part here. But yeah, 100%. It's getting really difficult to stay affront of it, especially as AI is getting really crazy now.
Yeah.
So
yeah, definitely AI is kind of making our jobs easier, but harder at the same time.
yeah, it's going to be a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
Stefan, maybe you could dive in a little bit on what we use as a base layer. So in an organization using Microsoft 365, we have what's called Defender for Office. It's what they've always had. Give us a couple pros and cons of Defender for Office, and then we can talk a little bit about the Plan 1 versus Plan 2. So if you're on a business premium account with Microsoft, you get Plan 1 by default. Plan 2 offers some additional capabilities. So give us both some pros and cons of Defender, and talk a little bit about Plan 1 and Plan 2.
Yeah, well, Microsoft Defender for Office is included in Business Premium, of course. That's very nice. And also included in Microsoft 365 E3 and E5. And it adds a couple of controls to, try to prevent phishing, because you can never prevent phishing because of AI and they're improving their phishing. You can never fully prevent it, but it will prevent a lot of phishing. There are a couple of controls that we configure, and one of them is, for example, save links and attachments. There's an interesting one. I found out a couple of weeks ago that previously I was testing phishing and I was sending emails in an encrypted zip file. That has been blocked.
Interesting.
Now.
Yeah.
That wasn't a couple of weeks ago. So the people doing the phishing could still send out emails and send a text in the email body. The password for the zip file is 1234, and the zip file had password 1234, and it wouldn't detect it. That has been corrected finally.
And so what you're talking about too, you have like the defaults that Microsoft wants to roll out,
Yeah.
right? So a recent attack vector was what's called like an ISO, like an image, right? An
Yeah.
actual, like the old DVD, but in a file format.
Yeah.
And so people were, bad actors were sending ISOs, these like basically virtual DVDs, and that would be able to install malware. So malware scanning's been around forever in email systems. It's one of the most core and fundamental things is like, if you're going to attach files, are those files showing malicious activity, right?
Yeah. Or
And
do
you
they
can
have
customize what gets blocked too.
executable extensions? Those are blocked by default if you enable Defender for Office. Because, of course, executables, you shouldn't execute them, but users, you know how they are. They just click on any link or any file they have in their email because it says, this is an invoice or invoice number or whatever, .exe.
And you could literally get this as tight as you wanted to as well. So like beyond the defaults of the crazy stuff like an executable or those things, you could literally get this down to just saying PDFs, Word docs, Excel docs are the only 3 attachments I could ever get.
Yeah, correct.
If you wanted to.
Yeah.
Right? So it's customizable in that way too.
Yeah. I think by default, a couple of extensions are blocked, and I think it's like 50 extensions, something in the Microsoft baseline. You can add a lot more extensions, or you can just only allow a couple of extensions, like PDFs.
Yeah.
But still, in PDFs, you can have malicious software in a PDF because PDF files can contain links or they can contain scripts. So you should be careful opening any PDF. You need to check if it's a trusted sender. If you didn't expect an email from that sender, just give them a call to check if this is a valid email.
And this is something that I think we got into on one of the other episodes, or we're going to expand on it for sure in the future, is like attack surface reduction, right? So through Microsoft Intune mobile device management. We're able to control what happens in the Office suite and in Adobe PDFs to prevent those types of things from happening, like automatic script execution or opening a link from a document to help protect against that exact thing.
Yeah, because even if the email came from a trusted sender, even if they did send the email, maybe their computer was infected. So their computer is adding scripts to the PDF file, and you're getting those valid PDFs with a script, and attack surface reduction will disable those scripts.
But yeah, so on the high level, obviously the core fundamentals like safe links. Well, let's actually talk a little bit about safe links, because attachments, that's been around for a long time. And then we've got anti-phishing and spam. Those are like all the bread and butter of filtering, right? Mm-hmm. Talk a little bit about safe links and how that could help with with these link issues.
Yeah, safe links in Microsoft 365 is actually pretty cool because it works when you receive an email. If the email contains a link, Microsoft will scan the link. When you click the link, it will open in a sandbox. That's a separate environment from your environment to check if anything malicious is happening, like a virus that's being installed, or maybe it tries to delete some files. So it will happen in the Microsoft sandbox instead of on your computer. And when Microsoft says the link is safe, you will be able to click on the link. But the cool feature about Defender for Office is that it not only scans links for new incoming emails, but also emails that are already in your mailbox. So if a link became malicious after a while, because of course, people sending you malicious emails, they keep the links safe for a while. And then after scanning has completed, then they will put in the scripts behind the links. Microsoft Defender for Office is capable of scanning links even if they're already arrived in your mailbox.
Because it happens in real time. It rewrites the URL.
Yep.
At least that's one option for it. And so like as you click the link, it does the check in real time again.
Yeah, again, correct.
Yeah.
And that's pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely. And especially because bad actors need to constantly expand their attack infrastructure, right? Because as the security researchers are adding domains, as they find them, all of their stuff starts to expire pretty quickly, right? It dies off very fast. Yeah. So they're constantly having to add new domains to attack infrastructure. So it's like, again, the chicken or the egg problem. And safe links can really help you block those domains that just keep popping up, new domains, untrusted domains, those kind of things.
Yeah, correct.
It's very expensive for them to keep their domains healthy.
Yeah.
Maybe touch a little bit too on spoofing.
Yeah.
In Plan 1.
Spoofing is where someone else spoofs you. For example, your name is John Doe, and you're getting an email from, in your organization, there's someone with the name John Doe.
Yep.
But someone outside of your organization is sending an email to anyone in your organization and uses the name John Doe.
The display name.
The display name, correct.
Oftentimes it's just the display name, right? Which is like the first and last name before the actual reply to address.
Correct. And it will be marked as a spoofing email.
Yep.
You can test it yourself. That's quite interesting because if you send an email from your personal Hotmail Gmail account to your business account, it should be marked as spoofing because you use the same name.
Yeah.
And that person already exists in your organization. So it's more difficult for malicious people to use false names or use names in your organization to, for example, send the link, you need to pay me something now, or please pay this invoice.
Which is really like, it's quite easy because you can use it, you can programmatically swap a display name. So once you have like an actual sender address, it's very easy for them to just rotate through display names. There's no verification to a display name, and really like a lot of emails to get them set up. There's not that much verification either. So, but in particular, it's really easy for them to swap the display name so they can just target that to a lot of different firms and use display names. And if you're just looking at the display name, then you could be in bad trouble because, it might look like somebody who you work with, but it's definitely not. Like you really have got to be paying close attention to the reply to addresses as well.
Yeah, and also check the domain name, of course.
Yeah. Which obviously, like most of the time, they're wacky display or domain names, right? Yeah. I mean, in a lot of the emails, that's sort of the telltale giveaway right before we even try to like dig into the email. It's just the domain is bad.
Yeah. What about when they try to kind of like replicate the sender emails with like different characters?
Well, yeah, like a lookalike attack. That's a prevalent thing too. We've actually seen that in the wild sometimes, and more targeted. We've seen literally domains being registered like very closely to a company's. That is also a bit tricky. You definitely want to pay close attention to that. Domain lookalikes are quite difficult to handle though, for sure, because they oftentimes are a little bit more targeted. And so the spoofing protection like could help there with the display name impersonation. But that's where it does get just a bit trickier, and that's where like end user training and awareness, and we'll get into that a little bit more. But like simulating emails, getting people used to this kind of stuff so that they understand some of these things,
Yeah.
and also just putting security controls in place.
Yeah, because I think I remember seeing like a LinkedIn post or something like that, and it was like it had the email, and it was like the fake email, and it literally had just the A. It was in a different like
just one letter
character
being
type.
off. Yeah.
And I was like, dang, like that's like that could be so kind of like hard to see if you're just like looking through emails like all fast,
Well, and I think in general, as attacks get better, we need to, as like security practitioners, we have to assume that it will become nearly impossible for a user to determine it.
Right.
That's kind of the assumption, right? That's at least my assumption is like, I think security awareness training is 100% necessary because you want to try to keep people abreast of like the latest information. But my guess would be that things move at such a fast clip that training like will not be able to keep up. So that's why I'm such a big proponent of putting security policy in place, because we can't assume that users are going to get trained fast enough to stop this. That's my 2 cents on it.
Right.
And so the best that we can do is do both.
Yeah.
But also be pushing organizations as hard as we can to get the proper security controls in place so that it makes it very infeasible for a user to actually give up their credentials or give up access inadvertently.
Yeah.
And I think that assumption is a good one to have in general.
Right. Yeah, because you can only train your team to do so well and to recognize so well, and like as they get better,
and it's going to get better and better and better, and the gap there is going to continue to close to the point where you probably won't be able to perceive the difference at all unless you're like literally a cybersecurity researcher,
right?
And so like how do you deal with that, right? You have to create new policies and procedures. You have to have better ways of authenticating supply chains and invoice payments, and there's a lot of things besides just the cybersecurity controls that have to be considered too, right?
Yeah.
Like how you handle money in your organization is a big important piece here, because we could have all the security policies in place and they pass all those checks and it's still the wrong information. So there's like other more like policies and procedure type stuff and business stuff that is going to have to be done as well that should be paid attention to. But yeah, let's go back. Let's pivot back a little bit. So we talked a lot. We talked about plan 1, right? Give a couple highlights of plan 2. What does that give additional benefits to for the IT teams? And yeah, and the detection capabilities.
Actually, this is a difficult one for me because I don't exactly know the differences between plan 1 and 2.
It's because honestly, the differences are pretty minute. I think in general, the big one for me at least is the Explorer, like by far. So like the real-time email Explorer, normally you're operating on message trace alone, right? With P1, plan 1. And so if you an end user come to us and you're like, hey, I need to look into this email, either it didn't get delivered or is it malicious or whatever, we have to run a message trace. And that message trace can take like 15, 20 minutes to show up. And then the information and the context of the email is much more limited. Plan 2, I love because Threat Explorer and the real-time part, it's like almost immediate. And the analytics, reporting, and context is like significantly better for somebody looking into an issue. So I'd say like you want to definitely have plan 2 if you get a lot more phishing emails or you have more security concerns and you want your IT team to have the proper visibility, right? Another thing that I was looking into that we don't use a whole lot, but like is the automated playbook investigations. And it doesn't take any action on behalf of the administrator, but it helps them pull together contextual clues on the emails as well. Basically just saving them a lot of time. Like all the things that we would go kind of do the different checks to make sure an email is legitimate. Automated attack playbooks can do a lot of that for you, and then suggest like next steps for the particular email. So yeah, plan 2. It's a nice to have, but a really, really nice one to actually add on. And in particular, we've used Threat Explorer a lot, right? And not just for malicious stuff. Like we literally used it on a migration recently to get a merger completed properly. It had lots of mail flow items coming across tenants, and we wanted to make sure that the mail flow is lining up one-to-one, and message trace just sucks for that. So Explorer is really, really nice.
Yeah, because with message trace, you can check if emails are failing because of incorrect DKIM and DMARC records. So you can see what's happening. And
yeah, do you get some of the other measures as well, like bulk confidence level or spam confidence level in message trace? I can't remember off the top of my head.
I know you can see them somewhere, but
contextual clues. Yeah, it's just somewhere.
Yeah,
but
and
you
we're
gotta
used
dig
to
it up.
we're used to just clicking anywhere and
Yeah.
to find our information. But it's I think Plan 2 has a lot of more comprehensive more comprehensive data about your why it's
Absolutely.
failing, and yeah.
Yep. And then so here's another thing that we ought to talk about too, because people will say, well, Defender for Office is not that great. I mean, it still lets a lot of stuff through, and it's true. I mean, at the end of the day, Defender for Office, I think, is a fantastic base layer. But it's still, even properly tuned, it is still letting, in my opinion, a bit too much through. And so we use third-party email filtering, the likes of which, you have the Mimecast, Proofpoints, Checkpoints, Iron Scales, Barracuda, and many more, Inky. There's all these different platforms out there. But just in the past 90 days, outside of Defender for Office, we've caught 5,257 emails. 5,257. And our platform is post-delivery, right? It's what we'd call like an API integration. So it doesn't actually go through the service and then land in the mailbox. So that's 5,300 emails that landed in the inbox and then got pulled. That's 5,300 attempts to get somebody to give up their credentials that we blocked.
Is that across all of our tenants or just us?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, that'd be scary if it was just us. But yeah, no, I mean, that displays how necessary you want to combine layers, really. Like Microsoft is a great solution at the end of the day to block 90 plus 95% probably or more. But that last mile, you really want to have a third party additionally helping Microsoft out. I mean, that's how we do it with all sorts of different services. So that is just in my mind, a very large number of items that have gotten blocked that we would have seen our phishing rates go up significantly if we didn't have that in place. So definitely necessary. Like if you're running with just Defender for Office, look for something that you can add on. Some of these solutions are secure email gateway solutions, so they're actually filtering through and then landing in the Office side of things. But regardless, like definitely add third-party capabilities on top of that.
I want to add one thing on the third-party email filtering. The one that we use, right, obviously Iron Scales, I think it's a really cool tool because it also kind of empowers the end user to kind of almost self-train because they're able to report them as they see them come in to the emails. And so they see something fishy. It's a nice little big red button in the corner and they can click on that and it reports it to us. Then we can go in there, review, and then we can either release it or mark it as spam or phishing.
But it definitely helps alleviate the process because otherwise you're forwarding a message over. You're like, hey, Julio, is this email safe? And that's just really inefficient.
Right.
Because when we get it pulled into the console with the actual proper reporting tool, then we're able to like look at the header analysis and look at just more
spam confidence,
more contextual awareness details. And then they rely heavily on AI as well. And because they have so many inboxes that they're protecting, they can pull in additional context. Like, did anybody else that we protect get this email from this sender, from this IP?
Yeah.
So it's fantastic. It really, very infrequently do we have to reach back out and say, we're a little unsure. It looks kind of like we're on the fence, that's pretty rare.
Right.
Most of the time it's really clear, like, this looks legitimate or no, this doesn't.
Yeah.
Because we have the right tools in our tool belt. So, Yeah, no, that's a really good point to add, though. Like being able to give your end users a way to report it is really necessary. So, going on to the next topic. So, like, this is a big thing that a lot of people are not taking action on nearly fast enough is the concept of DMARC and DKIM. Those are pretty confusing acronyms to the average listener. Talk a little bit about DMARC, what it does, DKIM, what it does, and how services are requiring both of these things on your domain to have deliverability into the future.
Yeah, I think DKIM stands for Domain Key Identification. I forgot the last
Management, yeah.
management, something like that. It's a certificate being added to your domain name to for the receiver to determine if the email is actually sent from your email server.
A certificate, right?
Yeah,
It's putting a certificate on the body of the email.
yeah. And if it doesn't match up with the certificate configured in your domain, then the receiver can
Know that it's not matching.
know that it's not a legitimate email.
And on that point for DKIM, is it just Office 365 that you're worried about, or is it other things? When I say other things, a SendGrid, a MailChimp,
Yeah.
website, like do you need this DKIM on all of your services, everything that attaches to your domain?
Yeah, you need to add all your services to your DKIM. So if you have a SendGrid,
HubSpot,
yeah, you need
name any of them, Salesforce, whatever is sending email as your domain with an address at your domain ought to have both of these things,
yeah, correct.
ideally.
Yeah.
Well, DMARC applies really more broadly to the domain. So, okay, DKIM certificate, right? It's like it's stamping that. You say, okay, this is matching what is broadcast on our domain, so we know it's signed. What about DMARC?
Yeah, DMARC is more like reporting. So if an invalid email comes in and the receiver gets an email that has been stamped as invalid, it will send out a report back to the sender or to a mailbox configured for the sender. So you can have reporting on where your domain name is being abused.
And in addition to reporting, what does it also do, though? The enforcement piece.
Yeah, you need to help me.
No worries. So, like in terms of DMARC definitely gives that reporting data back, right? But also, DMARC is an enforcement mechanism. So, DMARC specifies, okay, if the SPF record, or this is another one that we really should talk about as well. SPF, Sender Policy Framework, specifies what servers can send. So like Office 365 can send on my domain, SendGrid can send, or HubSpot, or whatever application is in my SPF. So DMARC takes a look at SPF and DKIM and says, if you're passing the sender policy and you're passing the certificate of the email, we'll obviously let it through. But what if one of those doesn't match? So if my email doesn't have a DKIM signature or it's not passing the sender policy, then what do I do? Do I quarantine the email? Do I do nothing, or do I outright reject the email? And all the major email service providers coming soon and basically now are already stopping or starting to slow delivery of your emails. So your emails will start landing in people's junk or outright not showing up at all if you don't have SPF, DKIM, and DMARC configured properly. A lot of the service providers right now are allowing you to have a DMARC policy of none, it doesn't enforce anything, but at least the policy's there and present. But you really ought to be trying to move your organization to either quarantining, so if you're saying, if it doesn't match my senders, my approved senders, or if it doesn't have my DKIM signature, you should quarantine the email. That's what I want you to do. But the most secure companies are moving to reject. So you're saying if it doesn't meet either one of those, you should just not even deliver the email, just delete it, get rid of it.
Yeah, so
which is very secure, because and obviously if you don't have all your stuff configured properly, you're going to have emails just go missing. So you should step it up, and you should have a service like Demarcian. Or Demarcian, or however you want to say it, that monitors those reports as well, or your IT provider, so that they can help you get everything aligned with the sender policy and the DKIM signing before you move forward. But yeah, those are It's kind of like we dove a little bit into the weeds on those three, but those three things you have got to familiarize yourself with even as a customer, because if your domain doesn't have these three things, your emails are going to stop getting delivered. Like all the major service providers are starting to really strongly enforce that because they're trying to get ahead of phishing and spoofing and all these things, right? They want to make sure they know where these things are coming from with certainty. So get those in place on your domains. Chris and I were just talking about this too. Is like, hey, so and so firm, like we have lowering deliverability. Well, it's because you don't have any DKIM signing and you have no DMARC. Your emails are going to start to go to junk, and that's just what's going to happen. So get ahead of it now. So anyways, enough on that one. But yeah, reach out to us too. Like if you guys have any questions on these things a little bit more in detail, definitely reach out to us because they get pretty technical. But those three words or acronyms, SPF, DKIM, and DMARC, you have to go check it and use MX Toolbox. Go Google MX Toolbox. You can plug your domain in and it'll tell you if you have them or not. And if you don't have them, contact your IT firm. So enough on that one though for now. Let's go to external email forwarding and sort of the risk that presents. We were working on this just recently, I think, with one of the customers, right? Modifying the outbound forwarding rules, because by default, Microsoft's starting to just block forwarding, right? And so we went in and modified a external forwarding policy. So talk a little bit about why would you want to not allow forwarding from a security standpoint?
I can think of a couple of reasons, but I don't really remember which one we were talking about that time.
I think I can know one because of the breach that happened an hour ago.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah, the first thing that an attacker wants is persistent access. So the first thing they do is, of course, they configure their own phone for MFA. And second, they will configure an email forward to their own email domain or their own email account. Because if you do a password reset, they want to keep their persistent access. So you do your password reset, they will get into your account, but they won't send out emails immediately because they want to go a little more unnoticed. So they just wait, and until the right moment, they will send out a password reset request. They will get it because of an email forward. They will also be able to authenticate for MFA because they already configured their own phone for MFA and probably unnoticed.
And well, fortunately, I was just going to say that. So like Chris and I were also just working on this, and his account, we block external forwarding, and he was trying to forward his account. Fortunately, in the top right corner, when you sign into Outlook, it's like a big box that pops up and it says your email is being forwarded. So gone are the days of like it being a silent forward, because what this really stems from is like exactly that. So a bad actor would go in and to get persistence and exfiltration of emails, they would put in forwarding. And then they'd keep a copy. So you'd just receive it in your inbox. And then meanwhile, a second copy is going over here. So Microsoft started getting ahead of that by disabling forwarding by default. So you just can't do it. You have to go modify it explicitly if you want to allow forwarding to another external address, which is great. And we had to customize a ton of external forwarding rules for the merger that we just completed for a customer. But yeah, fortunately now they flag it right in the top of Outlook. It's very obvious that your email is being forwarded, so it'd be pretty hard to like disguise it. But yeah, that's a little bit more of a legacy one, but it's still something that could be a potential risk. If you did go in and modify your outbound spam rules and you're just allowing external forwarding, the other thing could be like a disgruntled employee or something like that. Maybe they see that alert, but they're exfiltrating copies of all their emails to their personal mailbox, and that could be a problem. So if anything, it's probably that is the bigger problem than a bad actor, is a sort of a disgruntled person at the firm who is purposefully forwarding copies of all of their messages to something that they control. So if their account was cut off, they just have access to everything still. So that could or could not be a risk. It just depends on the organization.
I see what you're saying. I feel like if the organization is a little bit cleaner and they're not using like generic accounts and stuff like that, that can kind of get remediated once that account is terminated. But if an account is a generic account and they're just using that account living on, whether they bring on a new employee and then they terminate that person, they bring on another person, those rules can still live on that account.
Well, yeah, and by default, when you terminate an account, it doesn't disable forwarding.
right.
So
yeah,
that would
so
technically remain in place, even if the account is disabled.
if it's not turned into a shared mailbox.
Even by default, when you convert to a shared mailbox, forwarding stays on.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. You have to go explicitly check for that. So that there is some risk, like if anything, as we start to think through that, like it's really like more of a disgruntled employee or team member who wants to do that forwarding. Because if it was a bad actor, it's going to pop up in the top right of their mailbox. They're going to find it really quick. But if they were purposefully doing that and sort of exfiltrating copies of their emails to a personal mailbox, maybe it's not even malicious. Maybe they just thought it was a good idea because they were like, I don't want to check my work account. I want to check my Gmail. So it's inadvertently a bad actor in your own firm, and they think they're doing like the right thing because they're like, oh, I just want to check my Gmail. I don't want to go to my work
personal
account.
Gets
they
hacked.
think it's easier, right?
Yeah.
They're like, oh, I'm just going to check my Gmail, but all these copies of sensitive emails are coming into their personal inbox. That's a big risk.
Yeah.
I think that if you configure a mailbox rule containing specific words like password and then forward the email because of persistent access, then it won't show the big pop-up.
Yeah, no, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, so rules, mailbox rules. Like one of the things we're going to talk about is like so if you've confirmed or you've gotten an alert that an account might be compromised, there's like a number of different things you want to be doing, right? How do you resecure the account? Step us through a couple of the things. So one of them would be checking the mailbox rules, because the first thing that they do is they automate the creation of mailbox rules a lot of times. And those do kind of go hidden in the settings.
Yeah. One of the important steps is, of course, checking mailbox rules, checking mail forwarders, checking if any phone numbers or any other authenticators have been added.
Like for multi-factor authentication.
Yeah, exactly. And then, of course, revoke all sessions, reset passwords, etc.
And that can be done in Entra ID primarily. That's the best place, is to go to entra.microsoft.com, go to the users, or have your administrator do this. Go into the user, revoke the sessions, means that it takes all valid tokens for sign-in and kills those off. And then go check multi-factor authentication methods. In almost every case, more modern cases of these phishing as a service or attacker in the middle, they get into the account because they're capturing the MFA method as well. And then they add their own MFA method. And we just saw this an hour ago, literally.
Yeah, that's how they keep persistent access.
Exactly. So they are able to then go reset passwords or get back in because they have that persistence there. Anything else to think of off the top of your head?
I think those are the basic steps.
Those are the major steps for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, we have a procedure. We have a procedure what to do in case of an account breach.
And also checking like activity logs where possible. So did they touch any OneDrive data? Did they touch SharePoint data? To get a grasp of what may or may have not been compromised on the account is sort of the most important thing.
Yeah, one of our steps is indeed to download all the data from the portal. So even if you want to investigate, maybe investigate again a month later, then we still have the data. Two
of which would be the audit log data, meaning all the changes that have been made to the account, and the second being the sign-in data. So we can review every sign-in that's been made, every audit log, or every change that's been made to the account, and then review that and make sure nothing stands out. So yeah, and then I'm guessing, sort of in conclusion, the last thing to really help, and I mean, this is what I was talking about, is I'm a big proponent of trying to put the security policies in place to actually stop this. But on the flip side, security awareness training and simulated emails are still really like key piece of just keeping people aware. So maybe Julio, touch a little bit about how you think like sending those simulated emails can help. Because if your filtering solutions are really cutting this down, you don't see them so frequently, right? And so what does that help you do?
So one, as like from the IT side of it, it helps you see like which gaps there are in training in your organization. So
who's a clicker,
right? Exactly.
Who likes to click on the fake links?
So if you do have some, so if you do have some
it's
users
bad.
that do unfortunately click on it, you can see at what percentage is it a department issue? Is it just this one user issue or whatever it is? So you can address those kind of like faculties, right? But from the other side, it kind of reinforces and it re-shows them what you need to be looking out for. and how to act upon it, right? Like I said, with Iron Scales, you have like that nice big red button that you can go in there and report an email as phishing, or report it as spam. So as you see it more repeatedly, you're able to kind of, or they're able to kind of say, okay, I know what I'm looking for. And if when they do get the real one, they're like, okay, I've seen this before.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like, I think the biggest benefit of it is it's kind of like that self-training. We're not trying to like get you. We're not trying to like, oh, you're the clicker. But what we're trying to do is say, okay, this is where we're lacking, and this is where we can put a little bit more emphasis in training.
Yeah, for sure. And then obviously like those same simulated email platforms, like a KnowBe4, there's a lot of other services as well, but they'll also have like video content training. So a lot of like some of the things that we've talked about here in today's podcast, they put into small video snippets that you can send out to your team. So they're a little bit more abreast of like the latest, greatest attacks going on, that sort of thing as well. But yeah, no, I think those simulated emails, just in wrapping all of this up, is like you want to have all these security controls, and you definitely still need to train users. I wouldn't suggest that you like give up on the end user, but I do think that with the pace of AI and how fast everything's moving, I think it's like sort of a losing battle in terms of us being able to keep end users ahead, right? And so the security policies are going to be more and more and more important, like to try to build that wall as high as we can get it.
Yeah.
So, well, cool. I think with that, I mean, we've talked a whole lot about different email stuff, but if you guys have any questions about email security, SPF, DKIM, DMARC, phishing as a service, all of the above, there's a lot of complexity in email, but we'd love to help answer any questions you might have. And yeah, thanks for watching this episode.
I think I can add one more important one.
What is it?
It's conditional access.
Yes.
Yeah. I wanted to add conditional access because everything we talked about is preventing phishing from happening. But what you also want to have is something that prevents someone who actually is able to sign in from signing in. So, for example, your password and your MFA has leaked. You still want to prevent them from getting into your environment or into your organization. And conditional access can help.
Which we've done that podcast on conditional access, yeah?
Yeah.
Like we have another video like exclusively on conditional access, but to sort of hit on what you're talking about in a short form, by adding additional conditional measures, the most common of which we've been using is like device compliance, right? So for iOS, Android, Mac OS, Windows, all platforms, you can register that device and require that it was pre-joined to the organization before you can access data. That will stop currently, knock on wood, will stop phishing in its tracks for today. Tomorrow, a year from now, that's probably going to be a different story. But the best thing that we can do today is using conditional access. And device compliance is one. Trusted networks is another great solution. And then passkeys, like physical hardware tokens for multi-factor and other methods. But we get into conditional access in detail in our other podcasts. So if you want to deep dive on conditional access and how to properly block all this stuff, go watch that other video. But yeah, anything else to add to that one?
No, not at all.
Name
Awesome.
locations.
Well, cool. Yeah, thanks again for watching today's podcast, and hopefully go watch the episode on conditional access because that one is just as important as this one.